waiting for a bunch of people to join. Oh, yay! And Salote, Brandon. Okay, so please feel free to just get yourself settled in. People are going to be coming in the next 5 minutes, and so we'll get started as soon as most people come. Let me make sure I'm recording. Okay, good. Welcome, Jeffrey. Oh, it's so cool. I know many of you, and then there's also new people here, so this is going to be really fun. Why don't we actually start out while we're waiting for people to come? Why don't you just open the chat? This is how I normally start my groups. I just like for people to share where they're calling from, if you're comfortable, and also just how you're doing. How are you feeling today? How are you feeling about this class? How is everything going? Anything's welcome.
Oh, hi, Leanne. Yeah, Christian here.
Christian!
Yep, calling
Hi.
calling from Santa Monica. So a mile from Unplug, where we met.
I love that you live so close. Yay.
Yeah, and I'm feeling great. I'm looking forward to this very much. Yeah, I'm psyched, ready to go.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here, Christian. It's so fun. Christian and I met at Unplug, where I teach breathwork in person. And Christian and I have also breathed together with me as a breather as well. So breathwork it's so special. I know many of you know breathwork as well. Awesome. So cool. Okay, so you can feel free to type in the chat, or you can also unmute yourself just like Christian did and say hi. Um, Let me open the chat so I can see you guys. Brandon, welcome. So good to see your face. I love to see people's faces, but there's no pressure to put your camera on if you don't feel like it. Yes, Edie's also here locally as well. Salote, Maryland. Yep. Awesome. I remember that. So cool. I love also that we have people all over, all different time zones. This is so fun. Okay, so we'll officially get started in just a minute. I am getting over just a little something. My son and I have not been feeling well, so I might just pop in a cough drop. We'll see how my voice does. Yeah, that's right, Anne. You're in Norway. Oh, so amazing. I remember you and I talked about that because yeah, um my family's from Bergen. I don't even know if that's how Bergen is that is that better? Jeffrey, oh, so cool. You're in Scotland. Brandon, Virginia. I love it. Salome, Portugal. So, yep, I remember that. So cool. I know so many of you. Okay. I want to respect everyone's time who came live. There's a bunch more people who signed up, but they might be going in and out today. And the replay is always available to come back to as well. So, what I would recommend for today, I'm going to be teaching for probably, 20, 25 minutes. We'll see. Sometimes I talk for longer than I would like. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I want time for questions. And I really do. So, I want to give at least 20 minutes today for us to be able to just hear from a lot of you. I would love to check in and just say hi to everyone if possible. If you don't want to talk, you don't have to. But I just like my groups to be really engaging. I don't like to talk at people. I'm going to share some things with you that are it's coming from my heart to yours, but I also just like to really hear. I mean, this is relational work. And so if you've been to my groups before, I really like a lot of engagement and participation. So please feel free to use the chat, even as I share today. And if there's things that you want to comment on, if you want to ask questions, you can use the chat to do that. And then after I share, just for the first 20 minutes or so, we'll open it up for connection, for questions, for comments. I want to hear from you all. And again, there's no pressure for people who might not feel like sharing. You don't have to at all. Okay, so let me just open this and see. I'm going to do something, and I don't always do this, but I do have a few slides just to kind of organize my thoughts and make sure that I don't forget things that I really wanted to share that were on my heart today. So I'm going to share slides in just a minute. And I think that when I share slides, I don't think I'm able to see the chat. And so I'm not ignoring you if you post in the chat, but I can't see it until afterwards. So I'll reach it. I'll look at it after. And I really do encourage you to use it. So just go ahead and use it. It's a good way to stay engaged. And I know so many of you here, and there's just like in this space right here, there's just a lot of you are just, all of you are so awesome. So I do like to build connection and community, even if this is literally just like the only class that you pop into. I do like to have it be a shared space. And so before we get started with the material I want to share, let's just close our eyes and drop in just for a moment, super quick, maybe just a minute or two. So I like to just close our eyes and start to just drop in. So this share today, this class it's really from my heart to yours. And so let's just drop into the heart a little bit. And so if you're able to just use your breath to just relax your body, maybe you just want to release some audible sighs and just start to kind of make that shift on your own from the head down more into your body and into your heart as well. So I like to just slow the breath down, take longer, slower, deeper inhales and exhales. So that for me kind of immediately starts to shift me a little bit more out of my mind into my heart. Another thing I love to do here, just when I do this myself, I like to imagine that my inhales and my exhales are just going in and out of my heart space. So just imagine that your breath is going in and out of your heart chakra, your heart area, and just kind of opening and clearing, whatever might be there. Maybe your heart was a little bit shut down. Maybe you were up in your head and you forgot. That's okay. But just kind of literally breathing life force energy into the heart space. I like to sometimes put my hands on my heart. You can also kind of tap that area or, just kind of open it a little bit. And even with the shoulders, see if you can just like open the chest a little bit. A lot of times, even with my posture, I tend to kind of be curled inwards a little bit. So just like opening, making a little space. Or you can just roll the shoulders back. That also feels really good too, as well. And just knowing that we'll be together for a little less than an hour, just take care of your body. And so if there's any way that you want to sit, if you want to lay down, if you just make yourself really comfy. Okay, you don't have to show up any kind of way today. And also just take a moment on your own to just kind of slowly go from your head and then go all the way down to your shoulders, your belly, all the way down to your feet, and see if you can just relax all the parts of your body. And however you're sitting or laying, just noticing that we oftentimes unconsciously contract our body just because of stress or tension, and we just don't really need too many of our muscles right now. So see if you can just use your breath and just kind of let something go. Okay, beautiful. And just last thing we'll just feel our feet on the ground, or if you're laying, just see if you can just feel a connection to the earth below, just grounding yourself. I like to imagine that as I take my inhales in, that I'm just breathing the earth's beautiful, loving energy up into my body. And then on the exhale, I just send some gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for loving me. Good. So, so good. All right. Beautiful. And so if you want to, if you feel ready, you can gently, slowly come back. So good to be with all of you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come. And there's more people coming in. Is there anyone who might want to volunteer to let people in? You can just raise your hand. That would be so helpful because especially when I'm presenting, I don't think I can see people. So if they come in late, is anyone willing to do that? Oh my God, thank you so much, Salome. Let me just make you the co-host. I so appreciate you. Okay, cool. Yeah, you know how to do it, right? Oh my God, I'm just so appreciative. Thank you so much. Yeah, cool. Okay. And who knows, maybe people won't come, but people tend to come in and out. So, okay, so welcome, Mia. It's so good to see you. So we're just going to get started. We just dropped in together. And so I'm going to talk for maybe about 20 minutes, and then we're going to open it for connection, for questions, for comments, etc. And then there's just so much with this work to share. And so I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to present. Okay, beautiful. So let me just move this thing over here. Okay, cool. The only person I can see right now is Christian. So Christian, if you can still hear me and see the slides, can you just give me a thumbs up? Cool. Thank you so much. All right, so the path of union, this work is really, it's like the work that I am devoted to day in, day out. This is on a personal level, this is the work that I'm devoted to in my relationships, not just in my romantic relationship, but with all of my people around me. And then also, of course, professionally, when I'm working with groups and I work with people one-on-one, this is the work. So the path of union, this is really, it's an encapsulation of of this path that I speak about. And I know a lot of you here are familiar with, my writings, the podcast, etc., to varying degrees, and it's all welcome. Even if you aren't really that familiar, this is a great class because it's kind of like an overview. But I don't tend to ever stay on the surface. So, we'll also go deep as well. It'll be kind of a mixture of maybe things you've heard me say before, but also some new things as well. So, the path of union, the way that I teach and help people when it comes to really understanding the depth and the full potential of relationships, is that this is a path of healing, of growth, and of a spiritual evolution, really. And so, the primary orientation that I take, um, and I just want to just share up for a moment. I never ever thought that I would be teaching about relationships. I just want to, I'll share the primary orientation in a moment, but like, wow, I never was taught about any of this. I didn't grow up in a family where we practiced relationships like this. Quite the opposite, in fact. And I think a lot of you can relate to this. Um, a bit about me. I think I know a lot of you here and you know me pretty well, but I did begin practicing as a psychologist in 2011. I started working with everybody, all ages, children, all the way up to adults on really everything. So I was just working with everyone on everything. It was great experience for me. But in 2017, so almost, let's see, where are we at right now? 2026. So almost 10 years ago, I started to shift my focus onto relationships and I began to specialize in them. And I really didn't have any intention on doing it. It really was because of my own dark night of the soul. In 2014, my marriage collapsed. We were together almost 20 years. That was a very long relationship. And it was devastating for me. I know a lot of you have been through hard things, maybe relationship endings, etc. And at the time, I was practicing as a psychologist, and it was really this 2-year dark night of the soul I was thrown into. And it was devastating, but also I can say now that it was my greatest blessing. And I share this story a lot, but really like this work on relationships that I'm going to share with you today, and that I'm devoted to every day. It comes from blood, sweat, and tears of me having to really go through the fire, like really go through the fire. And I was dragged kicking and screaming down this path. Like I wanted no part of it at all. And so I know a lot of you here, you're helpers, you're healers in your own way. So many of us know that, the universe, God, spirit, the universe puts us through the thing that we then, once we come up and out, we basically have to help other people, or we don't have to, but it's something where it becomes a soul calling. And so for me, that was really, really true. So what I know now that I didn't know at the beginning is that relationships serve a very specific role for humans. So they're not just here randomly. We're not just kind of thrown here on earth and it's nice to be around people. Relationships are really here for our soul evolution, right? They stir up all of our stuff for a reason. If you think about two people coming together, in any relationship, it's the friction of like me and you and the difference between us sometimes that can stir things up, right? And we all know that in relationships, our stuff gets stirred up. And what I never realized, and it was a huge breakthrough for me, is that it's actually happening for a reason. And that is so that we can make our unconscious conscious. And so this is really the essence of shadow work, which is becoming more and more popular these days, is that we need things on the external world that can help us reflect back to us our shadow, the things that are in our unconscious that by definition we just can't see. So, theoretically, if I was living in a cave my whole life, I wouldn't be able to have that mirror held up for me to be able to see the things in my unconscious. I know I'm speaking language that a lot of you know already, but really relationships are here not randomly. They're here for us and for our soul evolution. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. So I remember when I first heard this concept, actually, I think I have the book right here. It's called Transformation Through Intimacy. It's somewhere on my bookshelf here. And that book was like, I don't necessarily recommend that you run out and get it. It's pretty good, but it's the first time I was able to understand this concept that relationships are actually evolutionary portals, which I had no idea that that was the case. But when I read that in that book by Robert Augustus Masters, I think this was back in like 2016 or something, it rang true. I mean, I got such chills because I was like, oh my God, I think I understand what he's saying. At the same time, it was a completely like new concept to me. And so that was the door that was opened to me to be able to completely change my mindset around relationships. And what happened for me was that it shifted powerfully me out of this idea that like poor me, life is happening to me, relationships are happening to me, people are doing things to me, which on the one hand is true. But on the other hand, maybe there's something here for me to learn, right? Maybe there's something here for me to learn. So we're going to go deep into this today. And basically, this path of relationships and this path of understanding that we can do shadow work through relationship is it's shadow work done through relationship. And I really believe that although we can do shadow work from like in different ways, right? Through relationship, it's almost like there's this built-in mechanism when we're here as humans on Earth that shadow work is actually meant to really be done through relationship with other people. And as I started out speaking, it's like the stuff that gets stirred up in relationship. And notice too how like different people stir up different stuff, right? Like different people will stir up and activate different parts of us. And it's really fascinating once you start to think about it. Like some people will even say our families, our mother, our father, our siblings, if we had them, some people really believe that, there's some kind of a divine orchestration where we're given the exact curriculum that we need, the exact people, the exact situations that we need for our own soul's evolution. And I really do tend to agree with that. I've found that it really is true. And so this is Jung's famous quote here, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our life and we will call it fate. I know a lot of you know this quote already, but I just, I can't return back to it enough, even for myself, because the benefits of doing shadow work, of being able to peek into our subconscious it's huge. We think that on our conscious level of awareness, we're creating our life and our reality. But, 90% of what our life looks like is actually whatever is running in the background, whatever is running in the subconscious. And so that's why I'm so glad that, things like subconscious reprogramming and shadow work is becoming really kind of talked about now. I remember 5 years ago, even it was something I remember talking about in some of my women's circles, like talking about shadow work, and people were like, "What is that? That sounds scary. That sounds scary." But now, more and more people are talking about this. For some reason, I don't know why my images sometimes don't pop up, so I apologize for that. But let's talk even more about the foundational principles of this work, this path. And by the way, let me just pause and say that there's so much for you to dig into. Even if you don't ever want to jump into a group or work with me one-on-one, what I like to do with my free content is give you so much to work with. So whether it's today or whether it's on the podcast or in the Substack articles, I give a lot that you can take and work with on your own because I never want people to feel like I'm just speaking about things theoretically and not giving you practical things to work with. Okay. So when we actually make the unconscious conscious, and I know a lot of you are actively practicing this work and have already done a lot of this work, but it really allows us to go into the subconscious and really face and heal, yeah, especially younger parts of ourselves, right? A lot of people say the inner child part, that's a big part. And it's not just like a kind of fluffy thing that people talk about. It's actually very real, especially with relationship work. We know that it's those early, early imprints from our mother, from our father, from our families, the things that we experienced in childhood. And that goes way beyond even like maybe traumatic events and things like that to and those matter of course, but it even goes beyond that to the day-to-day programming that we get from the families that we grew up in, the values that we were taught, from our family, from religion, from society, from all of it. And we know this, right? But all of this stuff kind of gets stuck in the unconscious. And so shadow work is worth every single second, in my opinion, that you do it. So we can heal younger parts of ourselves that maybe are running these stories or these narratives that it would be worth our while to actually check in and see, are these serving us? Right? Are these serving us? I'm just going to go down real quick to this last point of healing our mother and our father wounds is really often a big part of this path of relationship work because how we show up in relationships, in particular romantic relationships, oftentimes depends on the mother and the father imprinting that we got. And usually what happens is that we either carry a lot of those imprints forward or we rebel against them and then we swing to the polar opposite way of being. And that can have problems too. And so, I do a really, really deep dive into mother and father wounds in the class. I know some of you watched this one, but it's called Healing the Relationship between men and women. And I think it's a 3.5 hour class. It's on my website. I go super deep into this aspect of it because if you're here for relationships, especially romantic relationships, we almost can't skip this step here. And the part that I just want to add to is a lot of times I get people who come to me and they say, I don't really have a lot of trauma. I don't really remember that too much stuff happened that was traumatic, which is wonderful. That's amazing. But what I just want to share with people is that we also can't forget about just the programming and the conditioning, right? And so if you do check out that class where I cover the mother and the father wounds, you can see a lot of what I cover doesn't necessarily have to do with individual traumatic experiences. It has more to do with the programming and the different styles and sort of archetypes and templates that we're working through your mother and your father. So I know I'm kind of, getting ahead of myself, but this is an example of how we can start to make our unconscious conscious. And when it comes to relationships, this is like really very targeted work, especially romantic relationships. It's kind of the heart and the soul of where I would say the biggest bang for your buck is usually here in this area. So, shadow work and making the unconscious conscious, it really can help us heal these younger parts of ourselves that are kind of sometimes they take over the wheel in our life and they're driving the car, right? Unconsciously. Parts work, which has come up into pop culture and it's a great thing, shows us that we're far beyond maybe the I that we think we are. We're actually multifaceted and we have all these different parts of ourselves. And it can be really useful when we actually do this work to be able to see what is really going on in our psyche behind the scenes. Of course, shadow work can help us face and heal trauma and wounds. That the trauma healing work has really come up as well into pop culture and it's needed and necessary for sure. And then this work can also allow us to purge unhelpful programming or external energies. And so this part, can go pretty deep in terms of the external energies, but a lot of times we're carrying belief systems, thought forms that actually aren't really ours. So it can be super helpful to do this reflective work to be able to look at what is really going on behind the scenes. I call it sometimes lifting the veil, this sort of work. And I also have here that it can be a soul retrieval because a lot of times if we go through life and we feel like we have to people please or we have to like hide certain parts of ourselves that we feel like aren't lovable, then we kind of abandon them, right? And so when we do shadow work to be able to go in and really look at what has happened, right, with a loving, compassionate heart to ourselves, but also just with clear eyes to be able to see, like, gosh, when I was younger, I chopped off a lot of parts of my soul that I had to go back and retrieve. And there can be a lot of grief there. But it's one of the most empowering things when we can actually call these parts home and allow them to just like live in our heart. This is part of integration. It's part of becoming just like a more whole person, and not to be stuck in the prison of people pleasing or trying to shapeshift or mold ourselves into what we think everyone wants us to be. I know a lot of us can relate to that. And it gets to a point where a lot of us we just get to a point where we just can't do that anymore. So as I've been saying with this work, with the shadow work, with the unconscious work, it's really in our best interest to get curious about what is there. We don't have to do it all overnight. We don't have to do it, in a year even. Like this is the work of a lifetime. And so what I say is that, every step forward counts. You can do it at a pace that is truly right for you. As long as you're sending these signals to the universe, hey, I'm here for this work. Sometimes we can ask, just please, like, make it manageable, make it doable, make it feasible. And that's literally all that we have to actually communicate. If we don't and we continue to put our head in the sand, I know this firsthand. What happens is that the whispers of our soul, where it's trying to signal us and nudge us to see certain things, they have to get louder and louder. And if we keep ignoring them, a lot of times what happens is that we get hard lessons. And I know this is a really bitter pill to swallow, but it's really in our best interest to, at least to the best of our ability, to start to look at what's going on there. So again, relationships are here for us. They're not happening to us randomly. Doesn't mean that it makes it all like rainbows and butterflies and like, oh my God, I'm like just so blessed, right? It's like, yeah, we are, but this can be hard work, hard work. And so we hold both of these things of like, yep, I know that life is here for me. There's lessons that I have to learn. And then we also hold a lot of self-compassion and patience because it's not always easy. It's not always easy. What I have found on this path is that it's usually at the beginning when you're first waking up to this path, to shadow work, can be one of the most difficult times, especially if you're forced into it, like I was, in a rude awakening kind of way. But then it actually starts to get easier and easier. And it can get to a point where it's just not so hard anymore. Sometimes it can even be fun, So I just wanted to bring a little bit of lightness and hope to this. And I know that everyone here is unique and we're all at different stages. But this path for me is literally everything because even though sometimes it's hard to look at ourselves with clear eyes. It's hard sometimes. What I have found is that like it's such incredible liberation that like the payoff is just huge and it can lead you literally to a life beyond anything that you thought was possible. So I think we have to just like weave all of this in together. And so life gives us the exact people, situations we need for growth. I shared that earlier. This mindset really does shift us out of victim mentality into alchemist. And so I don't ever, I'm not into victim shaming at all or anything like that because there's a truth that victims definitely exist. I mean, the drama triangle is real. There are victims, are perpetrators, so we don't bypass that at all. But when we can also have this other view of kind of what I just said, of like, maybe there's something for me to learn here. A lot of times when people are in victim mentality, and I was for years, probably more than half of my life, what I had to learn with humility, and this was the hard pill to swallow, but in my relationships, I did feel like the victim and I was, but like I also didn't have very good boundaries. And I also like didn't have high standards, for who I chose to be in relationship with. And so, again, hard pill to swallow, but when we can really heal our ability to love ourselves and to know that we deserve to be treated kindly, we deserve to be able to have boundaries, we deserve to be able to have a voice in our relationships to say, hey, that doesn't feel good. All these things that I had to learn the hard way, this kind of thing for me, it was really just an invitation for me to step into being able to love myself, set boundaries when I need to be able to have a spine, and not have people constantly take advantage of me. And so I know this is a pattern that a lot of people can relate to. So all relationships are co-created. I know a lot of you have heard me share this before, but nobody lives in a vacuum where like kind of randomly just stuff is happening to us because similar to what I just shared, the relationship has me and it has you. And so like if I really don't love myself and if I have no boundaries, we live in a world where unfortunately what happens is that there are a lot of people out there who will take advantage of that. We don't unfortunately live in a world right now where people always are nice to those kind of people. This is just the state of the world. that we live in. And so a lot of my work also talks about the relationship between empaths and narcissists. And so that's also an example of how the path of the empath, who, is so open-hearted and so caring and so loving, often does have to be that integration of the boundaries of building a spine, right? And not losing your heart and not losing the ability to be compassionate and love people, but just like bringing that integration in. And so co-creation is a really big deal because it does shift us into more of like kind of turning towards ourselves and seeing, okay, so what's going on my side of the street that maybe I'm being nudged to heal, right? And so romantic relationships, as I said before, often replay our childhood patterns and imprints. And so this is the whole thing about coaching that I think kind of misses the boat here. And I'd love to hear from some of you later when I open. But coaching oftentimes focuses on the present and also future goals. And so sometimes they can sort of talk a little smack about therapy. We don't need to go back. We don't need to look at rehash the wounds and stuff like that. And I would say I do really still believe that there's usefulness to be able to go back and at least look at our childhood and consider it because it's almost eerie at this point when I get people coming to me to work together. If they show up and they're like, this is my pattern with adult romantic relationships, I always end up with this kind of person or like this kind of dynamic. And every single time we're able together to trace it back to what was going on in childhood. It's just how it works. So this is how, knowing basic psychology can be really helpful for us. And a lot of the work that I put out there that you can use and take and apply practically, like even starting today, can help you to understand how to do this as well. Okay, so in my work, because the path of relationships, if you think about it, it's just so vast. Like think about how many relationship teachers, coaches there are out there these days. There's got to be thousands and thousands, right? And so that just the field of relationships is just so much noise, so much clutter, and some of it's good, obviously, right? But it also can be kind of overwhelming. And in terms of like the work that I've been shown, which is, I just have to say, many of you know this about me, but I'm not really into pop culture. I don't fit into mainstream. I want to go deep. I want to go to the heart of things. I don't really like to stay on the surface. And so the path that has been shown to me, which I've already been giving you little nuggets, where we can use relationships for deep healing and expansion, is even just the path that has been shown to me is really vast. And so there's a couple of places I want to point you. There's a page on my website called Start Here. I was getting a lot of people coming to me and saying, I really don't know where to start. There's so much material. There's, tons of podcast episodes, Substack articles. So it was getting to be a lot for people. So if you go to my website on the Start Here page, it's basically just me helping you to get organized with what the really foundational stuff is for you to focus on. And then each and every one of those things tends to be just a little bit of a rabbit hole where I provide like five more links for you to go deeper or like this or that to work with. And um, please don't feel pressure to do all the things. This is work that, again, can be of a lifetime. But this is another three-stage path I want to share with you today to sort of make sense of it a little bit more of like what I help people with. And even if you just listen to the free content I put out there, this can be helpful for you to understand. But stage one, there's three stages to what I've been shown is possible in terms of really taking relationships to the absolute heights of what's available to us right now, at this point in humanity. 50 years from now, 100 years from now, it's going to be even more expansive. But where we're at right now, this is what's been shown to me. So, stage one is really the foundation. This is foundational ground level work. And we can spend actually a lot of time here, because it's the foundation. It's literally you're building solid ground to stand on. And in the past, before I was really shown this model, I really hadn't yet in my own life done this ground level work. And I skipped right to practicing high level conscious relationships and even spiritual partnership and divine union. And I did go to the heights, but then everything, because I didn't have that strong foundation, everything collapsed. And so it was a learning lesson for me to not skip steps. And so a lot of us know that we can't skip steps. So the foundational work of stage one includes things like healing our attachment style, freeing ourselves from codependency, learning about excellent communication skills, right? Moving into true self-love, which is really the heart and soul of like everything, and understanding and practicing healthy boundaries. These are just some of the really big ones that are encapsulated in that stage one. Stage two is when we really begin living and practicing relationships through and through consciously. So that's like what I mean by that is that we really understand each and every relationship with every person in our life is meant to be a teacher of some kind. It's there's something here for us to learn. And so we become conscious, we become really awake and aware to all of the stuff that's going on. And we learn how to become alchemists, to work with it. What is getting stirred up? What's getting triggered in this relationship and why? And it's really about slowing things down to stop showing up in our relationships in such a knee-jerk reaction way that we're human. Sometimes we still do this. And none of this, by the way, none of this whole path is about perfection. But we really start to begin just living and practicing like we get it through and through. It's running through our veins every day. We know it. We know that relationships are here for us. We know that we're meant to transcend victim mentality and use all of the material of our life for healing and growth. This stage really requires a high level of truth, authenticity, integrity, and personal responsibility, as well as really understanding co-creation and remembering that every single day so that we're not always pointing the finger outwards at people, right? It's like, it's not that we can't hold people accountable or set boundaries. That's part of this work for sure, but we're also able to turn towards ourselves to look at what's going on our side of the street too. That's co-creation, being able to understand both sides. Stage three is really high level spiritual partnership, which, this could be a whole other presentation, but relationships are a deeply spiritual path, especially romantic relationships. So this is where we start to align with the understanding of what true divine union is. And so I know some of you have heard me talk about this, but divine union is not a romantic relationship. True divine union is union of the God self and the human self. And so it's unification with the divine and the human parts of us. So it's a deeply spiritual path. And yet we can use partnership as a vehicle to get there. So this is where, if you've ever peeked at the mentorship called the Way Showers, it's really, it was inspired in large part by Jung's um, path of individuation, which has everything to do with this. And I can't get too deep into it now, but relationships are really a vehicle for us to get in touch with our true self, capital T, capital S, for us to peel back the layers of the false self, to get in touch with our true authenticity so that we're not showing up and we're not performing, we're not, abandoning parts of ourselves. We're literally standing in truth with a capital T, right? With great love, vulnerably. If you can think about this, it's scary for a lot of people to show up vulnerably, to allow themselves to be seen at a soul level. But this is really, it's a deeply spiritual path. And at stage three, we also work with what Carl Jung calls the anima and the animus. These are his terms for the inner feminine and the inner masculine that everybody has inside of us, right? If you know the correspondences, we all have a left brain and a right brain. We all have a left side of the body and a right side of the body, right? Like we all have a head and a heart. So like It doesn't have to be super complicated, but whether you're a man or a woman, we all have the potential in our fullest expression to be integrated between yin and yang, right? And so this is really, really deep work. So at this level, we engage in really high level targeted archetypal shadow work to purify our inner masculine and our inner feminine. Many of us are unconsciously running toxic feminine, toxic masculine, totally unconsciously. Everybody. And this is also represented on the world stage right now, just politically. If you look at the right and the left, these are representations right now of the toxic masculine and the toxic feminine. That's a whole conversation, but you can see that, these are the laws of the universe. When you start to understand that yin and yang hold together the fabric of the universe, yin and yang are everywhere, right? Light and dark, inner and outer, et cetera, et cetera. So stage three is a really, really, it's a beautiful high level path here. Additionally, you're living relationships as a spiritual path, and we also weave in what I call sexual sovereignty, which is really just what is the truth of your sexual expression, cleansed and cleared of whatever you were taught, programming, conditioning, even trauma that has tainted and colored your sexuality away from its authenticity, right? And so there's deep healing available there. Okay, we're going to wrap up soon. Let me just check the time. I knew that, okay, this is what happens. I talk a lot. So, just quickly, relationships are evolutionary portals. This is what I've been sharing today. It's a deeply spiritual path. I've covered this on the podcast a little bit, so I'm not going to get super into it. So many different ways to dip your toes in there. First of all, there's tons of free material, right? Podcasts, 50 plus episodes, tons of stuff on Substack. Keep just, consuming the free content. There's lots to work with. The Visionaries is the online community. It's really inexpensive, and there's just such a core committed group in there of men and women, like equally. There's the men in there are so involved that some of our weekly group calls actually have more men than women in them. And so, really core group of committed people in there. There's also lots of exclusive content. Always one-on-ones open. Last year, I focused quite a bit on just the mentorship, but one-on-ones open this year. And then I always, at any given time, have a group program available, usually. So I'm going to stop this here. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So I'm going to actually stay a little bit longer. If you have to leave right at the end, Mark, please feel free to. And you can always email me questions if you have them. But let's open right now for connection, for sharing, and really anything is welcome. Is there something that I shared that you want to ask a question about? Is there something that really hit home for you? Or do you have a question for me that maybe has nothing to do with what I talked about today? And you just want to use this time to just kind of run something by me? I would love to hear. So I would love to just say hi to everybody, but does anyone want to go first? You can just unmute yourself. And I'm also going to open the chat too. Did all of that make sense? Was that just a repeat for a lot of you, or did it actually help? Did it go a little deeper?
Also, I'll speak up, Leigh-Anne. It
Mm.
helped me. I've read a lot of your stuff, not all of it, but a lot of it. And I'm a big chunk through your 3.5 hour one. I have not done yet, but I'm right to the part where you're talking about the mother-father wounds and the archetypes, and I found that very helpful. And I had some questions stemming from that you kind of answered today for me, so I don't need to ask them now to a certain
Oh,
extent. So
good. Oh, I'm
that
so
that's
happy.
good. Yeah. But one, and I don't know how to phrase this exactly yet, but it was one of the things I was thinking about, which you partially answered already. So I'm trying to rephrase it in my head, but I get the sense when you talk about, there's this amazing life for you to lead, that spiritual partnership is a path to divine union, and I think I
Mhm.
understand now what you mean by divine union
Right.
better from what you described today. Um, but I get the sense, again, I'm not sure how to phrase this, I'm struggling a little bit, but like the path to divine union, it feels like the way you present it is kind of not dependent upon, but like a key component is a spiritual relationship or partnership, and that the way you phrase a spiritual partnership feels like a romantic one and not necessarily a non-romantic one. I get like, except for that one piece, the path to
Yep.
divine union, I get how it's all relationships in your life.
Yep.
And I get that. And I get like the foundational steps you went through today, that was helpful too. And I get how that relates to everybody in your life, not just a romantic relationship. But when it comes to that sort of that final piece, and even too, when you talk about, your sexual sovereignty, that feels like so divine union, uh, sexual sovereignty doesn't happen without a spiritual romantic partnership. That's what I hear, but so correct me or help me understand a little bit there.
Yeah, I love this
Does it
question.
make sense?
This is a great question. I mean, I think that if so the most potent path would probably be if you were able to we don't have control over a lot of this too, right? We don't have control over whether we're in a partnership or not. Like, trust me, I know I've been there. But I would say like a committed, romantic, monogamous relationship provides the most potent container to work with in this path, especially because it includes the sexual piece. However, knowing that we actually don't have control, right? If we have a partner or not, and who knows, there's probably some people here who maybe they're not meant to in this lifetime, right? I think a lot of people who are drawn to this path, that's probably not the case for you. I do trust the intuitive pull to this work. However, that being said, for people who are single, we use all of the current relationships around us, and everything can be worked with in that way. Everything can be worked with. So, all of it can be worked with, right? And there's also periods of time in our life where we need to be really silent and alone and maybe more withdrawn and more introverted even, and it's not it like a lot of this path has to do with this oscillation between what I call the dance of union and separation, which is it's not like this path of relationships forces us to be immersed 24/7 socially all the time, right? Actually taking that time to yourself is as critically important as well. So I hope that makes sense, because at the end of the day we can't actually force it. We can't force ourselves to be in a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that help at all? We can
Yeah, it
certainly
does. I
keep
think
talking about
maybe we can follow up and talk directly. I'm curious too, just like, what your phrase, what's the truth of your sexuality? I mean, how does that play out
yeah.
without a spiritual partnership? You know?
Oh, I love that. Okay. Well, I mean, there is some work that you can do on your own there. Actually, there is some work that you can start to do on your own. If you're single and you don't have a partner, um, in the article towards sexual sovereignty, there's some work that you can start to do when I kind of at the end practically say, okay, here's some steps that you can work with. And then certainly, like, let's just say you're working with a therapist, you can really start to unpack, some of it with them. So you don't need a sexual partner for the whole thing, And so we work with where we're at and what's available to us. Yeah, I hope that helps. They're
Yeah.
great questions, though.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else want to jump in? Salome, thank you for doing that, for letting people in. I really appreciate it. Okay, yeah, I can stay a little bit longer, but yeah, please just like really to dive in. Use it. No question is off the table. Is there any burning questions that you want to ask me? And don't be shy. Okay, I want to just say hi to a couple of you because, Anne, I haven't seen you in so long. How are you doing? And if you're like, yeah, I don't really want to chat today, you can always. I
No,
just
that's
am so happy
okay.
to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Yay, good. Okay, is there anything you want to share at all?
Oh, I find this work so fascinating and overwhelming because it's so much, and I am still on stage one. It's for me that is so much work, and it's finding the boundaries in my relationships, finding how I am showing up, and seeing how I am creating the situations that I'm in and not feeling so much shame and anger towards myself regarding that. So at the moment, I am like heavily focused on boundaries,
Yeah.
trying to find those, and it is so hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I thank you for sharing, Anne. I can so relate. I know that you and I talked a little bit, but like that's been the number one soul lesson for me has been boundaries. And I know that one. Yeah, I know a lot of people can relate to that too. It's so hard. And so like what I found is that like we can't have really good boundaries if we really don't love ourselves, right? And it's not a black or white thing at all. Like it's not. Like we don't have to be fully healed before we can set a boundary. It's just, if we can have a little bit more love for ourselves, it helps. And just knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect. It's such an everyday thing. Like even for me, some days maybe I haven't slept very well or I'm not feeling great. And like I don't do this is a messy path where some days we really hit the target and some days we don't. And we
Mm.
just it's like we have to pick ourselves up and we just have to keep going. We have to keep trying. At least for you, like it's beautiful because I know that you know like your North Star and where you're being called to go. It's not like you're totally in the dark. You have
Mm.
no idea, right? What's being called. So you have something to work with, and I love what you said about like it's getting like I can't repeat exactly what you said, but having more and more self-compassion along the way for yourself rather than shame, or being mad at ourselves or criticizing ourselves, and it's a win, even if we can bring 10% more love for ourselves, that's a win.
Yes, and also I've been working so much about the anger that I've been carrying, and it has allowed myself to feel when the sort of spark of anger happens.
Yeah.
And that is a new experience and scary because having lived my entire life numbing out all anger, all pain, because that is a bad feeling. And now like walking around with this fire inside me wanting to just lash out. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah, I'm remembering too, or when we chatted, because that is such a beautiful point you make. Because I feel like for those of us learning boundaries, we do have to get in touch with our anger. We do have to be like, hey, that didn't feel good, like stop doing that. And that's like the purest, highest intention of anger. I think it's here because it helps us set boundaries and like in its highest, purest expression of why it exists. It's
Mm.
like, yeah, like we're meant to have to feel that, to have it fuel boundaries and even just the word no, So thank you for sharing, Anne. I just so appreciate. Is there anything else you want to share?
No, it's scary and fascinating work.
I'm so grateful that you're here. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing and that you come, this path requires a lot of humbleness and humility and just being okay with where we're at right now. The people who come to this work and this path, I know each and every one of you are trying your best with what you have. Like, I really know that. Like, I've spoken in the past, not everyone's trying their best, but I know all of you are. actually. And so that's like that's all we can do. Um, all right, how's everyone else? Edie, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. Anne, thank you so much.
Um, I I have a lot going on and I'm doing well with it.
So good. Oh, so good to see. Look at the beautiful horse behind you. Edie's an amazing artist. She's an amazing artist. Oh, I love that. I love that. Are you gonna you're gonna share this with your partner too? He couldn't make it today.
So
Yeah.
he was here, I think.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool. I didn't see him. Okay, cool. Oh, it's so good to see you.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, feel free to, message me anytime. Just give me an update. But yeah, so good to see
All
you.
right. Thanks.
Okay, cool. All right, Salome, how are you doing? So good to see you.
Hello.
Hi. What's new?
So for me, I resonated a lot with Anne's sharing. I'm also dealing with a lot of rage and anger right now, and feeling all that I have kind of like swept and repressed over the years. Um, I also have been dealing more consciously with the motherhood and how codependent I am in relationships, even if I had like this mental I thought that I was more independent and more in control than I truly was. So I
Mm.
was lying to myself. And that was kind of like a low blow for me. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
That last part I can really relate to. Thank you for sharing that. I know these things are so hard sometimes, right? It's like, oh, they're tender. They're tender, but I can promise you that I already know you know this, but like it's okay. It's okay because it's for us. It really is. Oh, Brandon, thank you so much for coming. Feel free to message me if you have any questions, Brandon. Okay. So glad that you could be here. Okay, Jeffrey, yeah, anything you don't have to share, but I just wanted to say hi.
Okay. Hi, Leigh-Anne.
Hello. Any questions or anything that you want to share?
Well, I don't know if I could formulate a specific because I think all of what you've shared pretty much covers the challenges and in a sense, the vision too. You know, this aspect of we sort of see it in the world as a sort of absolute divide between the masculine and the feminine.
Yeah.
You know, that comes up within our well, we've all been through it. So I don't think I need to go into my own details pretty much, but it's such a painful sort of, it covers the whole spectrum, you know? I mean, and I think that's kind of the soul work and the challenges of that is soul work, you know, that it's not so much that we're trying to get it perfect, but I think we've also been so distracted from our own soul journey that it becomes somewhat other to think about the relationship as actually my responsibility as opposed to the other not showing up in a way that we've sort of fantasized or projected, you know.
Oh, that's so true. Oh,
Yeah,
that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing all of that.
yeah. Well, it's personal, so
Right.
Jung seems to have come in at a it's curious, eh? Because really, it's over 100 years, and he's
I
sort
know.
of he's been reimagined for our times, you know.
I love it. He was such the epitome of, before his time and all of that. And
Yeah.
it's been so cool to see like he's coming up into pop culture now. People are
But
quoting.
I don't know if that's it's hard to tell with social media how deep that is,
I
you
know.
know, but it seems to me that it's the calling at the moment, I mean, in this time for people to sort of jump out of the distractions,
Yes. And
try
the
to
slumber of it.
yeah, and try to come home to oneself,
Right.
and And you're absolutely right. I think there's nothing more intense in terms of coming to that ideal homecoming, except through the other, in relationship.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm. Yep.
it's
So
intense.
it isn't, it's so intense. I know. I mean, as someone to like, I know some of you know my childhood, but like I really came in super scared of
Mm.
people, like severe social anxiety. And so clearly my work was to learn about relationships and opening to it. But I mean it's here for a reason. And so yeah, it was something that you shared reminded me of this is like one of my favorite relationship books. I know a lot of you know
Oh,
it.
yeah. My last relationship, curiously, the Hendricks. We were actually doing a chorus together. My
Oh,
part.
how was it? How did you enjoy it?
Well, I think, it was an intention. We sort of vision board. It was one of these sort of classic, how shall I say? Well, it, well, there's too much to go into, so I won't. But it was curious because I think we were both very interested in attempting by, signing up for this sort of coursework to do it consciously,
Mhm. Yep.
because I just come through a 25-year marriage and went off to do plant medicine in Peru, where I met her. So, and then that was about 10 years ago, and it's recently broken up,
Hmm.
separate. But that was curious because I think we both sort of envisioned that we could probably turn a karmic into a destiny, if you know what I
Mm.
mean. Because I think a lot of what, as you say, what we meet on the road, and eventually become entangled romantically with, is an aspect of ourselves that we've cast away, that we
Yeah.
can't address uh, on our own. We're like, whoa, no, 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 but the other brings it up. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. I know that's a very Jungian way of looking at it. And for those of you who are interested, I just read James Hollis's book, The Eden Project, which
Oh, brilliant.
is
Yeah.
all about what you're saying. It's the subtitle is something like The Search for the Magical Other.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just how deep of a spiritual path this is and how it really relates to ultimately our separation from God, from divinity, and the search back
I
to
think that
return to that. Yeah.
absolutely, and that's almost like the impossibility of returning to Eden. But
Right.
that's because we've been cast out of that unified sense of, purpose, meaning, and everything else. And we look for it in the other.
We do. Sometimes,
And
yeah, unconsciously putting a
yes,
lot on the other person.
well, that's the codependent aspects,
Yeah. Right.
come on.
Right. Oh, I love this. Thank you, Jeffrey, so much for chiming in.
And you,
Um,
Leigh-Anne, thanks so
oh,
much.
and thanks all so much for staying a little bit longer. I could talk about this stuff all day long. So here's what I want to do to close. The recording's going to be available if you want to watch it again. Um, you don't have to, obviously. There's so much for you to dive into, though. I give a lot on the in the free content, so there's a lot to always work with. You can always message me, email me if there's any questions that you didn't want to ask, maybe in the group or anything that even comes up tomorrow. Please feel free to message me, reach out, stay in touch. I would love to see everyone in the Visionaries. Is just such a great group, and it's a really low cost way to just stay in touch with the work. But there's no pressure. I don't like to really do that to people, but I just wanted to say there's some of the most awesome humans that I know are in there. And so much love to everybody. I hope you have such a good Tuesday. I'm here, so stay connected and I'll see and talk to a lot of you soon, I hope. Okay. Bye, everybody. Talk soon.